Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. All right, mate.
All right, bruv.
Bruv.
Is that
Bruv.
Robin?
I don't know who it was.
What?
No, I think it was closer to the that bad dude that they send after him.
Yeah.
He had a very Cockney accent thing going on.
Oh, that guy. yeah.
Gloucestershire.
No, Gisborne.
Gisborne?
Gisborne was his name. By the way, most pathetic fight in the movie, by the way. He follows them down into this tunnel, and then he gets punched a couple times, and that's it.
Yep.
More or less.
Yeah, cool.
But no, you're onto something that I never realized. His full name is Guy of Gisborne.
Guy of Gisborne.
What is that?
Cool name. I like it. I'm Reese. Across from me we have,
David.
to his left,
Irina.
to my right, two dogs yet again, and seems a little strange that Noah seems to be missing out on our
Excellent movies. Best movies.
the best movies that we cover. But yeah, he is not going to be here. He claims to be sick.
My goodness.
Oh.
You're just throwing so much shade right now. Leave it be.
He probably is sick. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It's just some of us had to endure, whereas others did not. So I'll just...
What are you talking about? This is a great movie.
No, yeah, I'm not going to say... Yeah, it's not the worst thing we've talked about, but it's a something, is what I'll say. And sporting a pleather suit, a nice businessman-like side-parted haircut, and calling himself the Sheriff of Nottingham, we have...
AJ.
And the movie we're talking about this morning, tonight, whenever you may be listening, is Robinhood. Not that Robinhood. The 2018 edition. The one directed by Otto Bathurst, who, this is his sole directorial credit for a feature film. He was also he's more involved in television. You'll know him from directing a few episodes of Peaky Blinders, a few episodes...
Peaky Blinders.
Well, you get one in Peaky Blinders.
A couple episodes of that Halo TV show that came out this past year. Criminal Justice. He directed an episode of Black Mirror. And a few episodes of that TV show, His Dark Materials. All of these, I feel like, are actually not bad.
Side note, why is it that people just bring in a director for one episode of anything? Hey, we really just don't have any of the directors that were doing the rest of this, so we need a guest director.
Yeah, you're not talking to the right person about that. I've always wondered how shows are just able to slot in directors for certain episodes and they all coalesce together without their own individual vision.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's weird,
man.
but they do it. TV shows just work different. It's a different machine.
Yeah.
I think unofficially, what you would call a director of a TV show is the showrunner, the overseer of it. And directors, sometimes the showrunner will come in to direct an episode, but in the TV show's case, I think a director is more a cog in the machine versus the orchestrator of everything.
Yeah.
So it's weird. I don't
Kind of like, we need someone to fill this space right now.
Yeah, and they do bring in some more competent directors for certain episodes where they need something executed to perfection. Like Game of Thrones comes to mind, where they'd always have Alan Taylor doing the big battle sequences because he would know how to orchestrate them. But yeah, TV shows are a different game.
Well,
But
I think of directors as having kind of like a stamp that has a very specific look to it, and that being like the cinematography and music and everything. Whereas it's like for Black Mirror, for example, if he comes in and directs that, it's not going to be his stamp, right? It's just going to be...
Black Mirror's a different case. I think Black Mirror, it's an anthology, and each episode is honestly it is kind of more individualistic to what that director is able to do. But I do think they have to operate within the parameters of, you got to do something weird and X-Files-ish.
Yeah.
Not X-Files, but
it has
you know what
to
I mean? Or
fit the aesthetic.
Twilight Zone.
Like, there's a canon for what you have to execute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But say for something like How I Met Your Mother, David, that's probably more like, all right.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Oh, gosh. No, man, if you asked me 5 years ago, I'd know both of the directors, but
You would?
Yeah.
That's impressive. Or the showrunners, at least.
Well, they're the two guys who wrote and directed it.
Okay.
But they were two best friends, and it's based on their life.
One of David's favorite
Craig,
shows? Tom Craig.
Tom Craig. Hold on, let me. I know.
No,
it's
we don't need to
irrelevant.
verify.
We
this.
need
It's
to know
fine.
this.
No, we don't. I don't think we need to know.
I think
this.
he feels
I
he
do.
needs to know this.
Okay. Well, anyway, to sum up, I think Otto Bathurst is a competent television director. The jury is currently still out on whether he can competently helm feature films. The movie stars Taron Egerton, Jamie Foxx, Ben Mendelsohn, Eve Hewson, and Jamie Dornan. Honestly, the top 3 stars in this are pretty impressive for a type of movie like this. Obviously, Taron Egerton of Kingsman fame, and Eddie the Eagle, and Rocketman. And we have Jamie Foxx, who's been in numerous movies. I think he's an Academy Award winner, actually, at this point. For that, didn't he win for that movie, Ray?
Sure.
Had to have. I think he did. And then Ben Mendelsohn, obviously, like everyone's favorite villain in numerous roles.
Yeah. I was just listening to a podcast go over a bunch of different movies, and they were just talking about Ben Mendelsohn in it. Do you know what movie?
Force Awakens?
No.
No, I mean Rogue One.
No.
Just tell me.
Oh, Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's right.
There
I
you
forgot
go.
he was in that. Was that your anecdote?
I mean, it was just weird to me because I was listening to that, and then I was like, oh, I should probably research this movie because I was uninspired. And so I listened to it, and within 5 minutes, I heard Ben Mendelsohn's name on 2 different things. So it was just weird.
Eve Hewson, though, the Maid Marian in this, can you guess who she's related to? You're not going to guess, but I'm just for funsies.
Bon Jovi.
You're actually not.
too.
You're actually not far away. And AJ, you're correct. It is Bono's daughter.
Oh.
Yeah, from U2.
So
when you said Bon Jovi,
I was really close.
I know.
Actually.
I was like, oh,
Started with Bond, and you're like, what?
what? Well, then I would have just thought he researched
But
it
I
ahead of time.
hadn't.
But yeah, the movie was written by Ben Chandler and David James Kelly, and the story was by Ben Chandler. So for those that are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, AJ, I'm going to, before throwing it over to you, or I am throwing it over to you, but before you go into your history with this movie, this is your the first entry in your new miniseries. And do you have a title or a description of your miniseries for us?
Yeah, so just mind the cheese here a little bit. I wanted to do a little bit of globetrotting, some different cultures. So we're exploring hoods and different hoods. So
Nice.
And then this one kind of gets us started out, somewhat, I don't know, maybe spiritually closer to home. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne was always kind of, cool since The Matrix, and Cuba Gooding Jr., it portrayed a lot of stuff that, he's still a learning experience.
Time out.
Even though, like, California was always kind of a foreign area for me, I guess. LA and, growing up in that kind of life, I guess.
Oh.
But, yeah, Boys in the Hood was just kind of a cultural awakening for me, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that I'm just going to say, for one, we didn't watch Boys in the Hood. We watched Robin Hood. And I thought we were all on the right page since you were the one that told us to watch this movie. But I guess we were mistaken.
Is that what we're doing? Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
That's a better one.
That was good. Had you seen Robin Hood, the 2018 version before?
2018. No, I think I saw a trailer, but just kind of exploring this theme, this series, came across it and I was like, wait, they made a more recent Robin Hood in 2018 with Jamie Foxx.
Yep.
So I watched it.
For this episode for the first time?
I saw it at that time.
Oh,
to see if it was even worth, talking about.
Interesting. Okay.
So we're talking about it.
David, how about you?
No, definitely not. And
Definitely not.
oh, the weird thing is, I hadn't even heard of this movie. Like, where was the marketing team? Where were they?
Yeah, all I remember, I do remember the trailers for this, but they were very, like, it was a whole bunch of, like, hardcore parkour, like, archery, Like that's all I remember about it is just a bunch of arrows flying willy-nilly and then the title screen Robin Hood. Like, and I was like, okay, cool. You don't remember a single trailer from this, David?
No, I went and rewatched the trailer and nothing.
All right. Irina, how about you?
I don't remember a trailer, but I do vaguely remember a scenario where we were talking Robin Hoods and someone was mentioning, "Oh, which one?" I was like, "What do you mean which one?" And that's how I found out there was another more recent one.
You know there's a number of which ones, by the way.
Yeah, no, there are. But I just never thought that we would have to do a which one on Robin Hood.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's a story that's already so familiar that people would want to move on to something else.
Yeah. I can think of 5 off the top of my
Yeah.
head. Yeah. So you have the Errol Flynn original. You have the Disney Robin Hood.
That's the one I think of.
With the foxes. You have the...
Men in Tights.
Yeah. Oh, 6
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Yeah, Men in Tights. Then you have the Kevin Costner. Then you have the Russell Crowe. And then you have this one.
Yeah, anyway.
It's weirdly, like, been done...
A lot.
I compare it to King Arthur, honestly, where it's
Yeah,
one of those...
very, very similar,
Yeah, it's one of those stories that just keeps...
On given.
evolving.
Yeah, evolving. That's
got,
one word for it.
It's got a lot of, less than concrete history, and it's kind of adapted over time, and
Yeah.
there's been many takes on it, many iterations.
So this instance has happened to me twice. The first time was I didn't know there was a Russell Crowe Robin Hood. And so I was talking about the Kevin Costner one. I was like, oh yeah, I've seen Robin Hood. That was like very nostalgic for me growing up. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, like Kevin Costner? And they said, no, the new one, like with Russell Crowe. And I'm like, what? And then again, I was actually talking about the Russell Crowe one this time. And they said, no, not that one. Like the new one. The 2018 one or whatever. And so it's, I don't know, I've had a couple waves of just being blindsided by this Robin Hood thing.
Yeah.
And Reese, as you said, you had not.
I had not seen this movie. I had heard of it. It's one of those things where I was just, for me, the Russell Crowe movies seemed still so recent, and I was not in the mood to see another interpretation of Robin Hood this soon. I don't think anyone was. Like, it was just, I don't know who was asking for this. Like, just because you have, well, this was my mindset when this original
So
trailer
you do
came out.
remember this theatrical release?
I do remember the theatrical release. I just remember thinking like, okay, guys, too soon. You know, like it's...
Well, this guy had a different take on it because it's the legend you know, but the story you don't.
Yeah. Yeah,
Gosh, I'm sorry we haven't gotten into it, but I hate that
we'll
intro.
talk about that. I just remember being like, for one, like if Russell Crowe and Ridley Scott can't pull off the perfect Robin Hood movie, then how is Otto Bathurst going to do it? But we'll get it, and I haven't seen the Russell Crowe Robin Hood in a while, so maybe that movie holds up better, and I'll enjoy it a lot.
We're talking about it.
Yeah, there's a director's cut, so, and I remember it. So
Of course it is. It's a Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I will be watching that director's cut. But are we ready to move on?
Sure.
David, you want to give us that quick call to action?
Yeah, bruv. Hey, everybody, thanks for listening to the Franchise Killer podcast. And I'm just out here from Liverpool or somewhere in the UK. Just coming out here to let you,
You
know.
mean Sydney, Australia?
Is that where Taron Egerton is from?
Edgerton? Yes.
He's not from Australia. He's not from Australia, is he? Is that what I need to pull out here? Welcome to Franchise Killer, everybody. All right.
Boy.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for that.
I've said welcome to Franchise Killer already. We're good on that.
Hey,
You could just go straight into the call to action.
All right, everybody. Give us a 5-star review. Do it. I'm going to chop your hands off. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
So you didn't say, or I will chop your hands off. You just said, I'm going to chop your hands off.
Translation, if you enjoy listening to us, which I hope you do after that.
Bullocks.
Bollocks. I hope you do. Please do take the 30 seconds out of your day to go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you may be listening to your podcasts and give us a good review. Give us a 5-star. It really does help lift us up in the ranks and push the algorithm further in our favor. We do very much appreciate it for all the time and effort we put into making these episodes happen and gathering people, scheduling, and taking the time out of our days to, do all this. Would be much appreciated. Thank you and goodbye. I don't know why I said goodbye, but the episode moves on. This time we're going to have AJ take it away with the story since it's his mini-series. AJ, you want to give us that plot?
This is the story of a thief.
You wanted to steal. Now's your time.
He stole from the rich and gave to the poor.
What else you got?
I call him Robin Hood. It's got a nice ring to it, don't you think?
One thing keeps the sheriff in power. The money.
I want to hit the treasury itself.
How would you do it?
Set up a meeting. Everyone is with us.
Rob!
How did you know it was me?
You called out of disguise?
Well, it fooled everybody else.
This is
Suicide.
the danger's what makes it fun.
Can't you see you inspire the people?
This is our crusade.
There are too many of them.
What, for you and me? There's not enough.
£1,000 for the man who brings me on!
This is not going to end well.
Lord Robin of Locksley, an aristocrat and an English longbow master, lives in Nottingham and enjoys a good life with his lover Marian, before he is drafted by the corrupt Sheriff of Nottingham to fight in the Third Crusade against the Saracens. After 4 years away from England, Robin becomes disillusioned with the Crusades when he fails to prevent his commander, Guy of Gisborne, from executing unarmed prisoners, including a teenage boy, despite the pleading of the boy's father, which prompts Gisborne to send Robin back home under accusations of treasonous conduct. When he returns to Nottingham, Robin learns from his old friend Friar Tuck that the sheriff had him officially declared dead 2 years prior in order to seize his land and wealth, to continue funding the war effort at the behest of the corrupt Cardinal Franklin, exiling the citizens from the city and into the coal mine across the river. Investigating the slags, which is the coal mine area, Robin witnesses the commoners planning to rise against the government that oppresses them, and learns that Marian is now involved with their aspiring leader, Will Tillman. Robin is prevented from making contact with her by the prisoner whose son he tried to save. The man then introduces himself as Yahya, which he says can be translated to John, and proposes that he and Robin work to end the war by stealing back the money taken from the people to fund the church's conflict. Marian seeks Robin upon learning that he is alive, but he's advised by John not to tell her of his plans for her own protection.
I like how this movie opens on a narration and kind of actually cool illustrations opening it up that kind of bookend this movie. But it's Taron Egerton doing this kind of uninspired line delivery in narrated form, saying, "I could bore you with the history, but I won't do that." It's like,
I think it's actually supposed to be Friar Tuck, because when
Is
when we were watching it just now, it had the name of the person saying it.
All Cockney accents are the same. But I just found that so funny because this is very much an origin story. It is technically the history of Robin Hood, how he came to be.
Yep.
It was a little try-hard.
Yeah.
And trying to shake things up off the bat, dispel. There was something that we, I think, covered recently that was pretty similar, and it's like, forget what you know about this story. This is the real story, or something like that.
I think.
And a lot of this really gives me vibes of Directed Aladdin, the live
Guy
action.
Ritchie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this reminds me of Guy Ritchie's King Arthur.
I have this all sprinkled throughout my notes that these movies very much mirror one another, but I think Guy Ritchie did a much more I don't know,
yeah,
interesting
absolutely.
job of.
I feel like this was like an attempt to recapture Guy Ritchie's style and flair, maybe with a little bit of Romeo and Juliet, the Leo DiCaprio one.
Are we
Yeah.
talking
It's
Legend
like
of the
modern
Sword?
day?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That movie at least had, like, I think this movie would have been so much assisted by just a score that was more propulsive and interesting to listen to. That would have upped it at least like 2 points. Just give me, up the aesthetics, and maybe I'm more on board. This is one of those movies that would operate better with just better, I don't know.
It tries to shake up things. It recenters this plot by having Robin in this like almost modern urban combat setting, but with longbows in the middle of, tight city streets and the Crusades. And
By the way, before we get to that, I did want to comment on just how hilarious it is that they set up his romance with Maid Marian. It's just, hey, did you know that intimate kissing in multiple different areas and scenes means, wow, they have a real
so
connection.
in love.
They're so in love.
And then they flip around so that they're facing the other direction, and then they do it again and stare at each other.
She pins him with a longbow. That happened.
So good.
Well, there's zero character development, unfortunately, in this beginning, because I really like Taron Egerton.
Yeah.
And I would argue he's not even bad in this movie.
Yeah.
I think that what he's working around is difficult.
Yeah.
To say the least. Mainly Marion for most of the movie.
It's and I don't even want to put shade on that actress. I think she's just written horribly.
No, her character's not great.
You talking about the lamp that was in this movie?
It's I wouldn't call her necessarily a lamp. She does tie things together, but her character is almost like, you feel like it was written by a person who's like, this is the ideal woman, she's a little bit fiery, she gives to the poor, but she's also super hot, and she has some nice eyeliner too and full lips. And she's like super into the main guy.
This movie is full on CW cast, where it is like,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, she starts out as being the one that's, stealing the noble's, the rich person's horse. And it just happens to be that the stable hand is actually Robin, the Lord.
Yeah.
But she's, masked and veiled, and she's the rebel instead of your traditional damsel in distress. She's the one taking action.
Yeah.
So they're trying to upturn things right off the bat there. But yeah, the whole romance and chemistry is just like, this is just so on the nose.
It's so surface level, like basic, yeah. But yeah,
I want to say something about the costume designing too, is like, there's so many elements throughout the movie, but especially in their relationship where they're wearing different cuts of things and fabrics that are, I'm going to use this throughout this review quite heavily, but anachronistic. Like you can do anachronistic storytelling, but this is just like hodgepodge all over the place.
Oh yeah.
Well, Legends of the Sword did it, right?
It does, but it actually had a continuity and a mesh and motifs. This is just like, oh, hodgepodge, let's pick this and that and that. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But now let's do it traditional. Now let's do it modern.
Yeah, like Jamie Foxx's wear seems like straight off like the Target rack. And some of the other people have like actually legitimately, oh yeah, you look like a ruffian, or you look like a peasant legitimately. And then
it's
the point being with that is it doesn't help seal the chemistry between them. You're only expected that they're, together because they're both attractive actors or whatever. Yeah. That are, spinning around to each other and whatever.
Yeah. But to that action scene that the opening action sequence here, like it's Hurt Locker meets Storming Normandy. Like it's like
no, Black Hawk Down. That's what you're thinking.
Well, I was thinking about you. In Normandy, you have the situation with the gunners up at
the turrets,
the turret towers, where they're just like raining down hell. And by the way, these arrows are like artillery fire, like
50 caliber, 50 caliber right there.
It's an interesting okay, I admire that you're really leaning into this. The arrows or the bow and arrows are treated like rifles. Like they check they do the rifle turns in the hallways but with
clearing
their arrows.
clearing your your fire squad and stuff like that. but they're using longbows in close quarters, which is just absurd.
It is so.
That was the
I get the
biggest question I
stylistic
had
choice.
too.
Yeah, I get the stylistic choice to modernize the weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
The ambition is great. It was just not executed well.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
trying to find a actual handheld like blade is like, oh, where's Waldo in this movie? Like everyone has.
Reese,
bow
you and I were
arrows.
talking about that, I think, in that when we were watching it last night, where they were all fighting and we're like, no one would do this. It makes no sense tactically. And then all of a sudden one guy pulls out a knife. We're like, there he is.
There he is.
Yeah, the one guy's going to survive this whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole fight feels like it's taking place in like 2005 Iraq. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. AJ, did you have it sound like you were trying to chime in there for a second?
No, I mean, yeah, you have to see it to understand. Like, there's an element of this style could have worked if it was massaged down and, refined. And they actually had an overall tying motif that held this stuff together. So that it's not just, for lack of a better phrase, style over substance. It's too unfocused, I think.
My question is, if you're trying to be modern or quasi-modern day, why not just do a modern day Robin Hood? Like, right. I love the medieval setting. I prefer it actually in most movies. I really like fantasy medieval set movies. But if this is the aesthetic that you're going for and you're trying to do something different, that's a different idea. This seems like it's trying to have its cake and eat it too by doing the whole modern thing, but also...
Well, I think they truly wanted to be anachronistic. I think that was honestly one of the main ambitious goals. That was probably if there was a to-do list from the director and the writers, anachronistic would be one of the top things on their list because everything about this movie is sort of trying to show you firsthand, like, look how we're different, and it makes no sense, but it's kind of cool, isn't it?
When you do it in this manner, where there isn't really a canon of any kind that's established that you can see, where it all feels a little too mixed up, it feels both desperate and lazy at the same time.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching it, I just kind of feel myself recoiling in my seat, going like, oh, this is not, it's not flowing right. It's just, I feel like so many corners were cut. And corners may not have been cut. That could have been their intention, but because it's like they had cool ideas in the moment without taking a step back and looking at what it actually looked like all put together.
Yeah. Irina, you were pointing out that it had this kind of industrial look to it.
Oh, yeah, with the mines and everything.
In a way, I kind of liked that.
I do too. But then it's a third element where it's like, okay, that's not quite modern, but it's also not Robin Hood era.
It reminded me of that Tarzan Sign movie we watched, the Immortals, where it wasn't quite your idea of how you saw Greek mythology, but it was its own take. It was like this, and the set design was very like straight edged and I don't know, industrial, as you said.
Right.
But this one just doesn't have the oomph factor that one did, I guess.
I'm sorry. I think one of my major issues at this very beginning is how basically the poor are one singular character that is barely visible in the whole thing. Like you see them on a surface level. They talk about their trials, but you don't really see any of it.
Also, this movie is so literal where it's like, I'm going to steal from the rich and give to the poor. He literally picks up bags of money bags. Like it's a cartoon. But let's talk about our leading man. This is called Robin Hood after all. Taron Egerton is our Robin Hood for this.
Robin of Locksley.
Robin of Locksley. AJ, what are your initial thoughts? Or actually, overall with Taron Egerton's performance here, is he a worthy Robin Hood for this story?
I think physically, yes. One of the most iconic Robin Hoods is Errol Flynn.
Mm-hmm.
And Errol Flynn is himself just exudes that, the charm of the time, the machismo, I don't know what the word is, the flamboyantness, the playboy kind of whatever, that Robin Hood himself kind of has this laugh and mirth and easygoingness about him, and kind of just a cool cat, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think Taron could have gotten there with a bit more coaching, or maybe just, more working with him directly on editing and line delivery and stuff. And the biggest problem really is the interaction between him and his co-stars is, we say this about some things, and I agree it's true here, that, all these actors were playing in different movies, I think.
Yeah.
There's some overlap, but he can't carry this by himself because I feel like he has too much burden of fixing things that are already crumbling around him.
Mm-hmm.
I think if things were streamlined and just on point story-wise, style-wise, then he would fit in perfectly fine.
I think he was better when he was bouncing off of veteran actors.
Yes.
But when he's bouncing off less experienced, like Marion, like that's when he drops to her level, where it's so weird how that happens. But when
the scenes with him and Ben Mendelsohn are great.
Yeah.
Although I don't feel like that's a Robin Hood character, but the actual performance is good.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see what you're saying is it depends on who's on screen with him.
Yeah. Do y'all have a David Arena, any opinions on Taron Egerton here?
Not really, other than the fact that I just really like him as an actor. I think that he does a pretty decent job of doing his best. Like it's an uphill battle that he's fighting all movie, and he succeeds. Well, we'll say it that way. Something I learned recently too that it just seems relevant is that the story of Robin Hood was a lot more recent than I thought. I think it was like the 15 or 1600s when they first found text on it. And there are so many things that were added later that we think of as canon.
Yeah.
Mainly, the Sheriff of Nottingham was not in the original story, and it was just Robin Hood entering a contest to shoot bow and arrow, and he won. And then they sent people after him. I don't even, if I remember correctly, he didn't even steal from the rich.
So the original Robin Hood story is not your father's Robin Hood story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It got added onto and tacked on over time. And, there are places in England, I think maybe around Yorkshire, that are actually named after Robin Hood and stuff that are not even near Nottingham and Sherwood. So those got moved around. As things evolved, just like with King Arthur, we kind of alluded to, but also, so these poems and stuff existed about the local folklore. But one thing that really kind of bumped it up was Ivanhoe, and a lot of the Robin Hood character that we see now, especially with the contest and stuff, is from Ivanhoe. Kind of how a lot of the Christian symbols that we kind of understand today, even if you're not familiar with it, are actually from Milton, Paradise Lost and stuff like that, rather than your more original Christian tradition. Things definitely get shifted and built up and snowballed into different. It's a living work, living character, Robin Hood, and that's what I'm really excited about, is seeing how this character can be dynamic, but also embody certain cultures and histories, and then take that kind of same archetype and go in different cultures around the world and kind of compare and contrast. This one is kind of an easy start because it's all over the place and pulls from a lot of different things.
Yeah.
If you'll allow me with your miniseries, I'd like to. What I find most satisfying about Robin Hood movies is how well they do the whole trope of steal from the rich, give to the poor. I feel like it's very important to the success of a Robin Hood movie that is a big chunk of it that is satisfying to watch and is a through line, because that's his mantra or his reason to be.
Yes.
And I would like us to see how well they do it here and rank it against the other ones we'll be covering in the future. So that aspect of this character is introduced, I would say 40 to 45% into this movie, where he actually does start becoming a Robin Hood figure, or the Robin Hood figure we know from legend. how well do you think this is implemented in this movie?
Let's give us a defined target, just to be fair, so that we can kind of have a static target to compare against, and then maybe we can, have an arrow to split down the shaft if another movie hits the target. So yeah, stealing from the rich to give to the poor, that's classic Robin Hood. I mean, even in political discourse now, Robin Hood Act and that kind of stuff. So that's identified with Robin Hood. Always kind of a counter authority, whether it's the church or the monarchy or both. I think the original, he was a yeoman or like a farmer, kind of lower level in the feudalistic society, the classes. He wasn't the part where he's actually a nobleman and then got stripped of his title in the Crusades. That's a more recent revision. So
they touch on that in the Russell Crowe iteration.
Yeah,
I believe.
The Russell Crowe one does that. This one does that. But yeah, just someone who's a hero of the people.
Yep,
is what his core is. Like, he is giving of himself to, use his talents to kind of right wrongs or to help other people, whether it's, legal or not. He's fighting injustice and helping other people around him. And, he's always had kind of a, contrary to Errol Flynn's real life, more favorable attitude towards women and helping them, especially within medieval ages. There's not necessarily gender equality, but, he seems to try to help as much as he can, whether it's man, woman, poor, whatever, sick, all that stuff. And, he sacrifices himself, but also makes light of things around him. And his core original crew, his merry men are Little John, Much the Miller's son, which isn't really in this, I don't think. And then Will Scarlet, who's completely changed in this movie. But that core Robin Hood character, I guess we could say, is trying to fight injustice for the little people.
Yeah. So yeah, in that regard, I would say the critical flaw with this Robin Hood that we have here is that I don't feel like he is 100% invested in the whole stealing from the rich, giving to the poor, because it almost feels like he's more motivated to get back to Marion.
Yeah.
And the problem with this movie is that connection does not feel genuine to begin with. So his main motivator, we're not invested in, and the whole point of his character, that we know from legend, it seems secondary to that. Even though
no, you're absolutely right. I agree with you.
Yeah, nailed it on
100%.
there is one scene specifically that is exactly what you're talking about, where it shows him when he first steals the money, and mainly because he was mad at the sheriff, plus he was trying to get Marion back, but he gives secretly the money to Marion, and he overhears her later. She's like, he should really be giving the money to the poor, and he's like,
Oh, that's
a
an
good
idea.
and
it's
also
like,
this loops
what?
back around to what Irina said, where it's like, we're only ever told about the poor. We're not seeing
we don't
poor.
ever see the poor.
Who are these poor?
It actually, to me, it feels like this modern culture where people are filming themselves giving money to the poor, where it's more like the poor are a means to their end than actually out of charity.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, the way this is all constructed, where you have this character that's supposed to represent this kind of underdog in a way that's fighting for people who can't fight for themselves.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to rally behind him. And that's what they're saying the point of the movie is, but I feel like we're still hung up on the hots for his old girlfriend thing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there's a scene that, like, David, you mentioned him, like, retching after he saw Marion kissing a dude. He's been through war.
I know.
He should be hardened. Like, what?
His love is that strong, Irina.
I think the thing that's bothering me about this presentation is that it was trying to show you this really intense scene where it's basically mimicking what we recently would recognize as the war in Iraq, but he comes back kind of basically the same. Like, there's no sense of trauma or shell shock or anything from all of that. It's just, oh, I guess I'm back to my merry old ways, but oh no, my girlfriend, she didn't wait for me.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and even within the war in his squad, like you don't get the feeling that he's a leader.
Mm-mm.
All he does is make stupid decisions to try to go and play the hero and whatever, but he's endangering his other, squad mates.
Right.
And even Gisborne, the supposed bad guy, is the one that does him a mercy by, giving him a wound to get him shipped back home instead of,
right.
He could have just killed him or whatever. Like, yeah, he's executing people and enjoying it, but, that's kind of common among what's going on. This movie doesn't even go into where I think King of Thieves or Prince of Thieves, excuse me, is it King of Thieves?
Prince of Thieves, you're right.
Thank you. Even that explores a little bit more superficially, yes, but the whole Muslim versus Christian dynamic. This is just like, okay, they're literally there just because it calls for some action.
Yeah,
Well, so do we want to talk about the rest of the cast as you set up real quick?
Yeah,
we can. I didn't mean to cut you off, David. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Nothing important.
Okay. Jamie Foxx as our quote-unquote Little John, although he has a much different name. Also, I don't know if this is... I should bring this up, but is it okay that he's playing an Arab, essentially?
Why wouldn't it be?
I guess that it's okay.
I mean, it just seems like everyone's playing everybody nowadays, so... At some
point, I think the sheriff refers to him as a Moor.
Yeah.
Which the Moorish people were Arab North Africans, the Maghreb.
Right.
Okay.
And then you have the Moorish, I guess, what's the word? Immigration into Southern Europe through Spain and Italy.
Mm-hmm.
That's later on if you read Othello and all that,
Yep.
But, it's Northern Africa. I mean, obviously Egypt is right at the corner of Africa, but it's a very Arab nation. So there's absolutely a conflation of whatever. It's not going into detail of whatever. Like this Wikipedia article says they're the Saracens. Like I wouldn't even go so far as to put that specific label on them. They are just in the Third Crusade in the Middle East fighting a different culture. I mean, it's fine. Like
yeah, it's kind of like they're
what it is.
They're just taking that ticket from fantasy, and they're like, we don't need to specify. It's sort of fictional anyway. None of these costumes are technically accurate, obviously. So,
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem too, is that it feels very fake, but they're throwing in real things. So like, different crusades that they talk about in different parts of Europe and then the Middle East, where it's like those things happened, but everything else around it feels so fake. Like, should we believe that even is a thing?
So I think there are movies that do that kind of thing well. Like there are stories that do manage to blend the two and it works. It's just not working here. I think the differences are more glaringly obvious because there's not... You don't feel like there's really a good enough message behind it other than just kind of curtains, like little
window
drapery.
dressing.
Yeah.
I will say, though...
When you don't have a solid, consistent foundation, all the other things are more obvious.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we're going really negative.
I was about to say
like,
the opposite direction.
Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, to keep on track with both characters and sort of maybe something positive, going towards the sheriff of Nottingham, Le Sheriff. He played by Ben Mendelsohn.
Before you do that, though, I actually think Jamie Foxx injects...
You're right.
an
You're right.
I think he injects an energy into this movie, whether you like the performance or not. He gives the movie more of a pulse than it did.
Yeah, he's directing
before.
the actual plot moving forward. He's the one with the idea to fight the powers that be.
Yeah,
actually do something with his talents. Train him. I mean, the training montage was fun.
Yeah.
Like I would give it like that. That was fun. And that's where I think it succeeded in having the styles, twisted a little bit. That was fun for sure.
I felt
Jamie Foxx as Little John drives the story forward.
Well, he gives energy.
I feel like his character was almost speaking for me as an audience member, where Robin Hood is like looking after Marion and is like, oh, Marion's here and whatever, and he's like, no, like you can't you can't involve her in this. That's dangerous. Let's focus on what we're doing. And that's what I wanted to tell the main character this whole time, was just like, just focus, you know, like just be Robin Hood. Stop with this, like, I don't know what's going on.
Well, it's so hard because what are we supposed to feel about Marion? Like, at all?
I think there's that element of, well, the love story is such an important part of the Robin Hood story. I could see why they would want to incorporate that, but give her, I don't know, a little more of an activist role. But if you want to establish Robin Hood, you have to make him someone I want to get on board with. And I think the romance so far has been more distracting than helpful in that.
Yeah.
Do you think that Marion and her relationship with Robin and her role in this movie could be improved by another actress?
No. I mean, okay, energy-wise, maybe. I think she does lack energy, but just as it's written... And if you just did shot for shot with another actress, I don't think it's gonna save anything in the movie or make it any more clear.
I think there's certain line delivery that I could see, like a very seasoned actress maybe flipping it a little bit, but that's also a hard ask. Like it would be kind of difficult to do.
This is where we need Meryl Streep.
Well, I was thinking of someone kind of like Emily Blunt, where she is someone that already carries this love that people have for them. You know, I think Emily Blunt is a perfect example because we've seen so many of her roles. We feel like we know her. She's familiar.
Yeah.
We know she's kind to our knowledge. So I think incorporating someone like that in this role would already soften it a little bit.
So you're infusing almost a little bit of what we know.
Yeah, you're kind of carrying over this
Interesting.
already established knowledge of the actress, but this is a woman I don't know, and she could have very good acting skills, but she feels unfamiliar to me, and the movie doesn't really give me anything more to learn about her. So it's...
Yeah.
I could see in that way another actress improving the role, but it's still a very tall order.
The main reason I asked that is, I don't know if you noticed, but I feel like 90% of her dialogue, she didn't even try to use an English accent.
No, she didn't. It's
like everybody's kind of using an English accent, and then, oh, that's Marion speaking.
Do we have other like American actors in here putting on English
Jamie
accents?
Foxx putting
Oh
on
yeah, well,
something.
yeah, that's true.
Although I would even argue, as much as I love him in this, his accent is very inconsistent.
Yeah, it could be like a whatever you're comfortable with sort of a thing, where if you have trouble doing the English accent, just don't do it.
Well, he didn't do an English accent. He was going more for an Arabic sound, which, you know, when you first meet him, it starts very strong.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about her.
Oh, for her. Yeah.
I mean, there are movies where they're like, well, if you can't do the accent, just don't do it. But
there's a couple times where she almost like tries to, and it's like Scottish or something. But I don't know.
I wasn't really paying attention to her accent.
I actually feel like her character is almost harmed by the exposure to her story.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing that she gets her own story. But the problem with that is it's still anchored by the fact that she is dependent on Robin.
Right.
Like she's a leader of this people, but she's always playing second fiddle to Will, who's like an idiot or something.
Yeah.
And then Robin, who's just like also playing second fiddle to John's, directive.
Right.
And Marion herself could be actually taking charge and making differences. And she finally kind of does, like, too late in the movie. It's too little too late with Friar Tuck. But the fact that she's like so in love with Robin, and we don't know why.
Right.
At least I haven't seen why she really cares about him so much, other than that, he won her heart when she was stealing the horse or something. I feel like if there was more foundation of the strengths of each of their characters and how they complement each other.
Yeah.
And as you said, like the story of Marion and Robin is so strong because they are intensely loyal to each other.
Right.
Which that is already broken very early in this movie.
Just get rid of the whole will thing. That didn't even need to be here.
Right.
The lines are blurred so much in this, dude.
It doesn't do anything to serve the character of Marion.
No, it doesn't.
Having Will in that role. So yeah, it's rough. I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah.
The back and forth morally with what Robin is trying to do in this, the lines are blurred so much, you might even call him Robin Thicke. It's just,
oh gosh,
it's just so all over the place. But as honestly, we've talked about Jamie Foxx now, though. We've talked about Robin. We've talked about Marion.
Ben Mendelsohn?
I think we should talk Ben Mendelsohn now, who I think is the second strongest point in this movie.
Yeah, go for it.
Where
Sheriff of Nottingham
Sheriff of Nottingham. Yeah, he's still very anachronistic, still very bad. But the one good thing that two good things I like about this movie,
he's committed.
Is that he is 100% committed. His acting is good, and I really do like the dynamic between him and Taryn.
I do think he's kind of over the top. He's hamming it
good.
up, but it's appropriate.
This movie needs it.
It's appropriate for this movie.
Yeah,
and I would see that happening when there's not a strong director, so he's taking the initiative to play a strong character.
Yes,
and he's assuming that the other characters are going to be equally strong,
except for they're not. And but the even the story part of it that I that works well is, I know you said one other movie was going over how Robin was a lord or, somebody that wasn't among the commoners. I thought it worked really well story-wise. I actually was thinking the whole time, this story, this concept they're actually telling, I'd like to see it told by somebody else, because I actually really do like that one aspect of him playing sort of the Batman Begins story where he's giving back to the poor very obviously, trying to give to the church, trying to give to the sheriff and show, wow, look, see, I'm one of you guys. Get me on the table. And
get me on the table, man.
Oh, get me in on the Lord's table. That still doesn't work. You get it. It's just I really like that dynamic. And then in the evening he sneaks around and steals and then goes back and tricks him some more. I don't know. I like that part of it, and I really like Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a great actor. I've been he's been on my radar since Bloodline, which was one of the early actual good Netflix originals, which I encourage all of you to check out, with Kyle Chandler. He's an excellent character in that, but I'm glad he's kind of gotten his, recognition, if it's almost too prolific, but I think he does well in this role, and he plays a great villain in pretty much everything he does. I think the problem is the anachronistic style clashes where he's in this like very modern cut suit, leather. I mean, what is the point of that? I really don't know how that serves the story or anything.
It's almost like they're trying to go for like Nazi general type
It
look.
cheapens it.
I know.
It cheapens it completely, because he can be more menacing, more, evil, without this like pleather whatever modern cut suit. I don't understand.
Yeah,
because he's in contrast with everyone around him, even the other bad guys, even the the corrupt church officials and things. I don't know. It's unfortunate
confusing.
Because he's an excellent actor, and some of his story motivations, like it's almost too shallow, and he's too good of a talent that was written for him, unfortunately. But I really want you guys to take this, like, remember his performance, and also remember the character that was written of this sheriff here, and especially when we go over the Russell Crowe one, with Oscar Isaac as King John, as the antagonist in that. I mean, very capable actors on both sides, very great talents, but the menace is so much, differently cultured.
Yeah.
To varying levels of success. I won't spoil my hand for that movie.
What movie was this?
The next Robinhood, Russell Crowe's.
The Robinhood, the Ridley Scott one.
Ridley Scott, Russell Crowe, and Oscar Isaac. Sign me up.
We'll see.
Yeah, even Marion. I mean, if we'll talk
Kate
about
Blanchett,
them, comparing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that'll be a good episode. I don't want to overshadow this episode here, but I really want to see all the opportunities that these characters have and all of the rich history. And there's so much material about these characters that you don't have to reinvent the wheel to this drastic of a level. I feel like in order for this production, I feel like this director was like, I have to do something that's just, make it crazy modern and flashy in style in order to get some kind of recognition. That's not necessarily the case. Like, yes, Robin Hood, the story has been told many times, but even if it's the same story, if it's more cohesive and better told and, the characters mesh together, I will watch that over and over versus something that's, slipshod.
Totally agree.
Because the novelty doesn't last.
Do you want to finish out the last part of that story?
I really don't. Just kidding. Let me find my place here. Will Scarlet, you want to touch on that while I find...
Will
we
Scarlet.
briefly spoke of him. Or he's not called Will Scarlet yet.
Right. He's just Will.
Something, yeah.
Yeah. Her husband, remember?
Oh, Jamie Dornan's character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shaved head man.
50 Shades of Grey character. Honestly, a terrible, terrible character that I wish was never in this movie. I don't think the performance is bad. I just think this person being who they are is very ill-advised. This character to just be on to cause tension between Marion and Robin, who is a man of the people and shares a nice, intimate looking kiss in public with Marion to establish his place in that relationship, and is from there on pushed to the side. And then become, no spoilers, but also spoiler, becomes the Sheriff of Nottingham because, sure, I guess. The character arc of this guy is so terrible. I think, he didn't have to end that. Like, if you wanted this to be an origin story, he can show like a sliver of darkness towards the end, and I'll be like, okay. But having
Resentment,
having him elevated all the way to that position by the end is so dumb. Like, I'm okay with you if you're trying to tell like a story over a trilogy. What you do at the end of this movie is show that maybe he's turning or he's starting to turn. You don't just ramp it up 150 miles per hour towards, I'm the shit. Like, I don't know. It was just...
Well, here's the thing. Will Scarlet is one of Robin Hood's most loyal merrymen. Like, he's almost his number 2 at many points. And so I can understand having a novel approach where, have this kind of subtle tension, have a whole Arthur and Lancelot and what's her name? The whole love triangle there. Like, yes, thank you. You can kind of see that sow of doubt and resentment and, have Will have his own arc and then kind of flip and have this dark path. It just wasn't organic. It was done merely for the sake of having a twist.
Yeah.
And like a novel approach to this story.
And then
it didn't work for it.
Further making Marion and Robin seem like very shallow people who don't really care about others' feelings in this situation. Right. But
also, like, Will at first was kind of a man of the people and working hard and doing what he could, how he knew how to do it. And then suddenly he's like, all I care about is power, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, where did that come from? So, yeah, it was very much a just throw things on its head because a twist.
Yep.
Yeah.
So and we need sequels.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Without doing the work for it.
Yep.
Let me finish out the plot. This is going to be a bit, but we talked about the characters also. I think we can talk about, the rest of the story. So hang tight here. Through a grueling training regimen in his now decrepit manor, Robin greatly expands upon and improves his skills in archery and combat, and began stealing the riches the sheriff has extorted from the townspeople, earning the name the Hood, while concealing his activities by masquerading as a frivolous playboy lord who supports the sheriff's regime. During a party in the Cardinal's honor attended by Robin, Marion, and Will, Marion and Robin discover the war is a ploy of the church, which is also funding the Saracen army, to defeat the king and claim total power after his death. Gisborne and his men are brought in to raid the slags for the sheriff in attempts to find the Hood. Marion attempts to intervene despite Will's objections and crosses paths with the Hood, whom she discovers is Robin by recognizing his voice. John is captured by Gisborne and tortured by the sheriff, but refuses to reveal the Hood's identity. When the sheriff uses John's faith against him, he threatens him with the promise that his eyes and face will soon be the last he sees. Robin reveals himself to the commoners at Marion's urging and is braced as their leader, upsetting Will. Will leads a riot to distract the sheriff's men while Robin intercepts a caravan transporting the sheriff's fortune out of Nottingham, due to be delivered to the Saracen army. Robin then leads the townspeople in a battle against the sheriff and his corrupt forces. During the confrontation, Robin shares a kiss with Marion, which is witnessed by Will, moments before he is horribly scarred by a Molotov cocktail. Angered by Marion's love for Robin, he abandons her and the revolution. When the tide of the battle begins turning in the sheriff's favor, Robin surrenders to avoid further bloodshed and is taken to the sheriff's castle to be executed. One of the guards is actually John, having previously escaped his cell, and he finally claims revenge on the sheriff by hanging him on a chain in a massive censer burner and is left dangling high up on the roof of the cathedral. Robin and John flee to reunite with Marion and the townspeople who assisted them, taking refuge as outlaws in Sherwood Forest, sharing out reclaimed loot. Meanwhile, the Cardinal approaches a vengeful Will and offers him the chance to claim the power vacuum in Nottingham if he is loyal to the church. Will is appointed the new sheriff and brands Robin and his followers criminals, with Robin defiantly challenging Will to come after him with a well-placed arrow through the wanted poster being held up by Will to his townspeople.
Molotov cocktail, huh?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so let's say part one, we got the training montage, cool, awesome, Will, kind of shakes hands with this uneasy alliance to kind of start this revolution. The twist also in the sheriff's plans, instead of just being greedy and whatever, he's plotting with the church to actually overthrow the king by funding the Saracens to somehow come all the way to England from the Middle East, which makes sense. But so Will infiltrates them by playing along and throwing money everywhere to find all that out when Marion discovers that he is the Hood.
So this is where I think the movie oscillates between being slightly more interesting and your typical action movie. I'm going to try to be generous because I actually think the action is well done here. I think it is almost...
I think editing could have been improved in a lot of places.
Lot of quick cuts. Yeah, a lot of quick cuts. But there's some cool choreography. Taron Egerton, from what I could tell and from what I watched, did a lot of the arrow stuff on his own and learned
he did talk about in some interviews his personal training and learning to shoot a bow and stuff like that. So
yeah. And there's some creative there's some creative kills too, I'll say, like where I was like, oh, that was actually not bad. That was pretty cool. This is also when we get the church involved, where we have the Vincent D'Onofrio lookalike. I don't know what his role is in the church. His role is the church, to my knowledge. Where and the
I think he's like the archbishop.
Yeah, and the sheriff of Nottingham is subservient to him. So you get the sense of the line of power here, and Robin Hood's able to weasel his way into the sheriff of Nottingham's good graces by very unsubtly dumping a bag of gold onto a tray in the church, and then the sheriff of Nottingham being, "You are very generous."
I think he says something along the lines of like, "Wow, you're outshowing all of us."
Yeah, and he's like
putting us all to shame. That's what it was.
And Taron Egerton is, "I want a seat at the high table."
Yep. Which is just like, isn't that a way of just saying, "I'm putting the money in here because I want that. I want it." Yeah,
and this is basically a stage for Ben Mendelsohn to show off how evil he can be. That's what I got from like this. The whole 30-minute section of this is just like him yelling at a bunch of people, saying like, "I hate the people of the church or the people under me. Like I wish I could kill them."
One of my favorite lines is when he's talking with what's his name? Hold on. I was
Tuck?
no, not Friar. Well, Friar Tuck was there, but it was, I think, Ian Peck right? Is that his name?
The Cardinal?
Yeah, one of the Cardinals.
Yeah, I said the D'Onofrio lookalike.
The bald guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a scene where he's talking with him about like we're in the war effort together, so we should align and make sure we get this done. And then Friar talks like, isn't it better to be Christian and turn the other cheek? And then
Why does he sound like Kermit the Frog?
hold on, you want that? Hey there, guys.
Same
what
thing.
Would the Christian thing be to turn the other cheek? And then Ben Mendelsohn turns around and says, "Why would you believe in a God when he gave you a face like that?" And I was just like, "Whoa,
Whoa, I can't.
dude,
It's a
coming
shame
in
because
hot."
the sheriff here is actually could be very well developed compared to other iterations of the sheriff. Like he could have so much background, especially with this like backstory of, his abuse in the boys' home by the priests and stuff, and him really being like jaded and just broken and really hating them. The whole hatred thing,
Yeah.
And the seeding of that is great. More than just he likes money. Like that would have been a great approach if you want to add to the Robin Hood story. Yeah, flesh out the sheriff. Awesome.
Yeah, but instead he's settled with lines like, "Tuck, you're an idiot." Like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you could have written something more clever for the Sheriff of Nottingham to say.
No, he's evil.
By the way, what kind of plan was that Robin set up where he's like, where he brings Tuck in and says, "This man's a liar." Like,
Yeah.
like I was like, you honestly could have gotten him killed. Like that was
kind of upset me because I feel like Robin Hood would never ever endanger his friend, especially with him not knowing like in the know about it.
and especially after
where he is
seeing him
legitimately
assassinate
could
people
die.
openly. Yeah.
Yeah. That was kind of off-putting because like a Robin Hood figure would never endanger someone unwittingly like that.
This is a take where this Robin is so new to this. Like he's green, man. Like he's learning, and after that,
But
he's gonna get better.
the problem is he's betraying his goodness because he's being more conniving for the sake of his own gain versus helping other people.
and he did
the
get
good
him out of
other
there,
people.
right? He got him out.
But he doesn't learn from his mistake or his his grievance. Like he doesn't ever, say, "I'm never doing that kind of thing again," because it could have turned ugly, all this stuff. Like,
remorseful.
no, he got away with it smooth, he's a smooth operator. So he still does that
Fist
again.
bumps to Friar Tuck's like, "Got you out, bro. Thanks for getting me out of the church, man."
So the order of things gets a little confusing for me, but there's a horse chase, and this is the big one. I think this is the main set piece of the movie, and I will say there is one shot here where all the horses are coming around. There's like fire going off in the background. It's obviously like pyrotechnics and fake as heck, but I don't care. It looked cool. Like I was like, okay, that's a cool shot there. This is when they're getting away with they're doing some sort of heist or something. But Marianne is there and she's like, I know who you are. I can tell you're Robin. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She pulls his thing down, which is kind of compromising of their mission. If anyone else, yeah, sorry, thank you. But what y'all think of the big action set piece of this movie? And maybe since we didn't touch on it quite enough, the action in general, because this is primarily an action movie. There's very little room for drama,
Which is funny because I don't even see it as an action movie. Like there's a lot of action.
It was
you're
fun.
right, but
It was fun, if not, a little sloppy. Like you could tell this was like, a first project for a director or someone.
Yeah.
But it was still, good looking overall.
It was the most competent aspect of the movie for me, even though, as we said, the quick cuts were annoying. I was like, this is a director who knows his way around action, not around actors.
Well, he likes his slow-mo, that's for sure.
Yeah. Irina, thoughts? You're like cringing or like scrunched face. I'm just trying to I'm trying to read you. Explosions
go boom.
Man, this whole movie, when I think action though, I just think of like slow-mo of a guy jumping sideways in the air with his bow and arrow, and it's like pulling it back.
The thing about slow-mo is I appreciate it when it's something that looks cool, but it's slow-mo on things that just don't feel like they need to be slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, he's
Yeah.
going around a pillar real slow. That's
Oh, they did
cool.
that. They did a lot of slow mo on him turning around that pillar. I still don't get it.
Felt that
The
I know
slow-mo-
it's maybe not intended to be this way, but the way it looked to me was like it was trying to fill time.
The slow-mo placements
They paid a
were
lot
so
for that
weird.
green screen, okay?
Yeah. The slow-mo placements were so weird. They're like sometimes they'd be appropriate at like an action moment where someone's
Right.
letting off an arrow, but other times like Taron Egerton would just be hiding behind a pillar and for whatever reason it slow-mos
No,
on his
that's
face.
that's the one I'm thinking
yeah,
of.
just like he like slow-mos on him gritting his teeth and I'm like, why does that need to be slow-moed? Like,
It's going to turn
Well, it's
into
like
like yeah.
Sorry, I get it when there's like a really cool explosion where maybe they want to show you like, hey, we put a lot of work into this big thing right here. Let's showcase that a little bit. Give props to the
yeah.
CGI team or whatever, but I don't know, you get like very bland shots of him just kind of like skating around
yeah.
someone. I don't know.
It made me think of Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., where it's like him thinking and like ticking.
yeah.
It's like 1, make sure that I turn around this pillar. 2,
but-
It's
dodge
actually
the bullet.
cleverly done though.
So-
Oh, well, it's the dialogue that
The
does it.
difference is the dialogue too, but there's sort of this like wind up into a punch. You know, there isn't really anything that feels very
Yeah.
punchy about the action shots. It's just
Another Guy
slowing
Ritchie
down
connection by the way.
Oh, there we go.
and then continuing the scene. Whereas with Sherlock Holmes, it felt like it slowed down and then it sped up quickly to give you that satisfaction of the like the blow to the head or
Yeah,
something.
the-
It felt
it's-
kinetic.
This is where you actually, I know it's hard to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's where you start to appreciate a Zack Snyder, where it's like appropriate speed ramping at the right points for slow-mo.
Right. Yeah.
He's the king of slow mo.
Yeah, this one clearly less, I don't know, grasp on when it's effective. But this is around the point where I feel like Robin Hood is outed as Robin Hood to the sheriff. Kind of, right?
I thought that was closer to the end, but
Honestly, I've watched this twice. This part of the movie is a jumble of the timeline for me.
Yeah.
Where at this point, not final action sequence, but penultimate action sequence. And then we have the cringeworthy speech where he talks to...
oh gosh, I hate that.
Yeah, where he
speech.
talks to the people, and obviously, like, Marion is giving the side cheek to Jamie Dornan's character, and he kisses her awkwardly on the cheek, and she's like, all right, well, I'm going to look at Robin Hood as you're doing that. And, like,
speech is so good, man.
but, by the way, is her character arc, I love Robin Hood. I love Jamie Dornan. I love Robin Hood.
No,
Is that-
I've
is
loved
there any-
Robin
well,
Hood the whole
I
time.
don't even know if she ever loved him. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, really.
Well, there is one split second where she really affectionately looks into his eyes as Robin Hood is watching and gives a legitimate kiss.
Yeah.
So
That was a goodbye kiss, Reese.
it was a good. She didn't even see him yet. Like she was like working in the market.
No. That wasn't just to showcase how not poor the poor were. That was not a market. That was supposed to be the mines.
Oh,
She was feeding them soup.
They're not buying the soup? No, which, by the way, that speech at the end was like, you're poor. Yeah, we are poor.
We hate it.
You guys don't like it, do you? No, we don't like it.
yeah,
It's like,
you're right.
well, you know they're going to kill you if you don't fight back.
Also,
Well,
by the
okay.
way, Robin Hood convinces them all to. Okay, so Jamie Dornan's character wanted them to, and I'll keep forgetting his name, Sparks or something. I don't know.
Will.
Yeah, Sparks. That's what it was.
What?
What was his name?
What?
Who are you talking about?
He's an important character in the lore, but I can't remember his name because
Will.
Wait, which
Will,
one?
Will Scarlet.
Will Scarlet.
The-
There,
oh,
that's what I was.
the
Spark. Will
Sparks, okay.
Sparks.
And here he's Will Tillman or something like that.
Yeah, so he's trying to convince them all to run, and Robin Hood's like, "Let's fight!" And then Marion's like, "Yeah, I agree with Robin Hood because I love him, not you." And they end up fighting, and there's a moment during the fighting where Robin Hood gets up and it's like, "Stop this madness!"
Oh,
I'm like,
man.
that-
Oh, man.
Right.
Oh, I'm
Because
pretty
all these
sure-
people that are in murderous rage of just beating
I
down
know,
people
they're
can
not
just stop
gonna
because
stop.
this guy got up there.
So
like,
bad.
You convinced them to do this.
I would have loved if just a a flying arrow like shot him in the rib cage or something.
All right,
It's like that. You're not gonna stop that.
Let me paint a picture for our audience because this is getting a little jumbled. He gets all these people. Robin Hood gets all of the poor, quote unquote, to fight against the bad guys.
Yep.
They get in a fight, and then he's like, "Wow, this is terrible." And then he gets up in front of everyone while all these knights and people are fighting the poor. And he goes, "Stop this madness." And then everyone stops and looks at him. And he's like, "Take me instead. I'll sacrifice myself." And they just take him and the fighting ends.
Did he?
Well,
Yeah,
someone
the
just
church
shoot
and the
him and
sheriff-
then continue the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Literally brought in these like terrible mercenaries to extract blood from the stone of the people, like by just absolutely crushing them and slaughtering them. But yeah, Robin standing up on a cart while everybody is just, getting routed is gonna cause everybody to drop their swords and
Also,
shake hands.
I forgot. Lil Jon gets captured and then he finds his way out. So that happens as well during this portion. Okay, so we're rounding up on our finale here. Sorry, we've kind of sped forward here, but we got all the table setting out of the way, so we're just galloping forward, just like Robin Hood and his band of merry men in the working. But we get to this finale. Little John we still don't know if he's actually back yet, but Robin Hood has found his way into the church. The sheriff... Sorry, I missed. He's with Marion, but they have this encounter with Gisborne, or whatever his
Gizmo.
name is. Gizmo, who is set up as like almost this big bad henchman who's like, "Oh yeah, I eat Robin Hoods for breakfast." Like that's like his
Without
energy.
any milk.
Yeah,
he's the guy that actually kind of saved his life in the beginning
Yeah,
by
he did.
getting him sent home.
Yeah, he's also the guy that kills the son of Lil Jon, which we completely glossed over. And that kind of gives Lil Jon motivation at the beginning. But yeah, he chases them down the pit that starts to crumble with rocks because Marion hit something, and then they have a literally under 30 seconds fight. And that's the end of it. And they have a quick dialogue where Robin Hood is like, "I won't kill you, that's wrong." And then Marion hits him on the head. Marion decks him and is like, "He had it coming." And so that's the end of that.
Yep, got him.
Got him. And then, of course, they work their way up to the church where all the baddies are chilling. And we run into the sheriff of Nottingham, and at the moment that it looks like Robin Hood's like his plan's been foiled. He's down on his knees. One of the guards is actually Lil Jon disguised, and he intervenes, and they get the comeuppance on the sheriff of Nottingham and do the old wrap around the neck and shoot the rope thingy and hang him, and it's cool. And they're laughing as his hanging body is against the stained glass in the background.
Clayton.
I actually kind of liked that part, though.
It was a good scene.
It was
well shot.
Do you know what it was? Not to tease things in the future, it was very Zorro.
Oh, yeah.
But you remember the blonde sheriff.
It
dude.
does give you some satisfaction in resolving some tension.
Mm-hmm. What I will say, I know I was kind of flippant about my summary of what happens at the end of this movie, but it's all very like base level, competently done.
Yeah,
like it's not offensive to watch. You just kind of wish it was better. I don't know if y'all agree with that.
Honestly, if the movie had ended there, I wouldn't be unhappy.
Yeah. It's the stuff that comes after that just like punches you in the crotch. But it's like I think the action at the end is fairly compelling. It's not the best. It's just like you can tell that thought was put into it. It's not. This isn't bargain bin DVD level. It is well executed. It's just. I don't know. It's just there's something missing there.
I might call it bargain bin.
I've seen worse. Like there's actual choreography going on that you don't see in the bargain bin. Like this is not like the Bruce Willis Hard to Kill or whatever bargain bin title it is.
I think what it is the caliber of talent we have here, and it's just falling short. That's really where a lot of the disappointment for me lies. Is things just not ever gelling.
Yeah.
Even though we have these great ingredients.
Yeah.
Or great quality or potential.
Yeah. And like I wanted to hate the Sheriff of Nottingham more. He does evil things on the surface, but it's almost like he doesn't personally attack Robin Hood or his loved ones in any meaningful way for me to want that satisfaction of Robin Hood nailing him. Like I get it with
Phrasing.
you know what I mean. I get it with Little John hating him. Well, not even because Gisborne or whatever, the guy who killed his son, got him. Okay. Quick fix for this movie. This is on the fly. This is on the fly. You know where I'm going with this. I can tell. I need a face-off between Lil Jon and Gisborne. I hate saying the word Gisborne like this, but I need like a face-off with them, a definitive him taking that guy out because he's directly responsible for his son's death. They telegraph that in the beginning like it should happen, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that's the face-off that should happen there. And at the end,
Marion just like sucker punching him.
Yeah, like what was that? Was Jamie Foxx just staying in his trailer that day, refusing to come out and shoot the scene? Like what? I'm trying to figure out what was happening here. And yeah, Robin Hood needs to take out the Sheriff of Nottingham, which does happen. Does he fire the arrow? I forget. He fires the arrow, right? Or is it Lil Jon that fires the arrow? See, that's
no. It was Robin.
Okay.
Robin shoots the
because what happens is, and I think you're confused because I think Little John earlier says to the sheriff, like, the last thing you're going to see is my face killing you, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then and Little John wraps his neck, and then Robin shoots the arrow.
That's cool. That's fine. I'm fine with that.
And honestly, that dialogue between the sheriff and Little John, where he's, in chains and stuff, and then Little John needles him with the religion stuff, that's actually like a little hint of the depth that this could have gone to, but doesn't ever.
Ooh, these little moments, man.
The singular best scene in this movie, and I forgot to talk about it, and they could have gone further with it. I wish they did. But was when the Sheriff of Nottingham was talking about the killing of his son, and he said, like, you know what happens when someone's beheaded? Like, there's this moment when they see, and they can't quite, contemplate what's happening. And he was probably thinking, like, well, why can't my dad help me? Or why wasn't he there? That's
what AJ's saying is like this moment is such a good snippet of what it could be.
Yeah.
That elevates the true villain and really understanding how to get at someone and understand why, that's true hatred, because he is understanding what is actually important to Little John, and he uses the religion aspect of things, like, he's going to gorge him in pig's blood and burn him so that, he doesn't, receive his afterlife and that kind of thing, like, instead of dying as a martyr. That is the true evil of,
his mercy was saying that he would kill him quickly. He's like, I will kill you quickly and you will be with your son. That is the best he was going to offer, and that's pretty good for a villain.
Yeah, so I think we're trying to say that Ben Mendelsohn and Jamie Foxx kind of are the reasons this movie's not outright terrible, right? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, that just writing of that scene, there needed to be more of that level of writing.
Yeah, I agree. Even go farther with that, with what he was saying. Go into the science of someone who is beheaded, how they, what happens, as they're dying.
Yeah. Because as it is,
to the core.
Our hero Robin, why does he hate the sheriff? Why is he doing anything? We don't, as far as motivation for this entire revolution and everything, he comes home and his home is ransacked, and he's like, this sucks. Yeah. And Marion is gone, and he's like, oh man. There's no passion or real fire in Robin. There's just, the motivation is so lacking.
Yeah. As I said, that's the problem with this movie. He is motivated more to be with Marion, who is a nothing character, than to be going against the ultimate evil and helping the poor, like, which is what is Robin Hood's very being.
Little John was a better Robin Hood, I think.
I was just thinking about it based on what you guys were saying, but what if they had gone an extra step and twisted the story where Little John was kind of using Robin so he could get at the sheriff? And
Really?
It ends up being a little more his story than it is Robin's.
If you're wanting to twist things up and do something novel, like do something like that. And,
Really twist the story. I agree.
Well, it's because we don't care about Marion, but for a short period of time in the beginning, like that moment where they were going to kill Little John's son, that was probably the scene I was most invested in.
Yeah.
Because one, it didn't kill me yet in the rest of the movie it didn't lose me yet. But that scene, I was like, what is going to happen here? And they did it. They pulled out all the stakes. They killed the kid, and it also had Robin put his neck out on line. So I thought that was one of the better scenes too, which we didn't talk about all that much.
Yeah.
So how about, we talked about it a lot before, but just, to finally, I guess, wrap it up, Will Scarlet donning the pleather suit, the same cut that just doesn't even fit him right, with the clearly fake prosthetics on his face.
Clearly what is weird about this movie is that the wraparounds, the beginning and the end are easily the worst parts of this movie. Like the setup, the origin of like, oh, Robin Hood making out with Marion, that's obvious chemistry, opens the movie. And then we close out with Jamie Dornan suddenly doing a heel turn and becoming the new sheriff of Nottingham. Like,
Wow.
How was he next up in succession for something like that, first of all?
You're probably wondering how we got here.
Yeah, like...
just mildly ambitious,
Yeah, like...
because we needed more main characters with less motivation.
So their choice was
solve this movie.
Their choice was to nominate the second to lead of the rebellion against the church. Like, technically, he was right up there with Robin Hood leading this charge against...
Yep.
But
then he got burned by a Molotov cocktail, so all things changed.
That's
so
true.
I could see it happening, but it has to be played out over a long period of time. This is just too short for that kind of a turnaround.
Well, there's no bitterment that's ever like broiling in the background or simmering or stewing. He's just like, I want to be mayor.
Yeah.
And whether it's on this side or that side, it's going to happen.
I just want to be that way.
Marion be damned.
You don't...
Oh, no, he kissed Marion.
Also, it's supposed to be this satisfying scene at the end where Robin Hood shoots the arrow at the wanted poster and the guy's there. I don't even hate this guy. He's just like, all right, I guess he's the sheriff of Nottingham now. Like, I didn't like him, but this is supposed to be like, oh, we're sticking it to the man. Well, here's the big arrow shoot at the poster. We're going to get you next time. Yeah. Like, I don't even really want to get that guy. I just kind of want to like toss him in a ditch.
After Ben Mendelsohn, like, this guy is a wet blanket. Like,
he is.
So also, like, Will in the first place he wasn't really necessarily a bad guy.
No.
Exactly.
Like, he was actually trying to look out for people in the way he thought would save lives. Right. And everyone else is looking, like, Marion and Robin are looking down at him like, oh, you're a coward. It's like, no, I'm literally trying to make sure these people live. You want them to just die in battle.
So you have to know that the director
in a lot of other movies... Well, I know that's been explored in some movies where actually the more heroic thing, heroic in quotes, is the person that's actually, playing it safe, as some might say, versus the brash hero that's endangering things.
Right.
You get the whole Wachovia Accords and all that kind of discussion somewhat, but
Sokovia,
he's the one that, thank you, Sokovia, not Wachovia.
Oh, no, you're fine.
That's a bank, isn't it? Anyway,
it's not like Wakanda.
But yeah, the actual true hero or the true leadership and the true things that are going to save the people is, the small wins, the small battles, but also not endangering people brashly.
Right.
And this kind of guy comes along and just like starts fires everywhere, and then by luck of it, things are upturned. But
right.
There's no order established or anything. I mean, those are all topics that this could have explored, but instead, and they're trying to set this up as a sequel as he's like the next villain. Like this guy has no animosity, real like for Robin. There's no antagonism or no foil of character, or there's no redemption for him to be had because he's just nothing.
Yeah.
There's like if he was maybe possibly turned or swayed or found the error of his ways, he started from nowhere, so there's nowhere for him to grow as a villain.
Yeah. It's just like way to end on a note where I'm like, oh, I really don't care what happens next. You're supposed to hook the audience, and having him as being your next one is not the way to do it. The way you do it is set up his merry men, be like, oh man, this is the start of it. And they do try to do that, but not. They're more trying to focus on the next sheriff of Nottingham than actually setting up, this is like, his troop is finally getting together. Like, the Avengers assemble. Like, it's not, they don't have that energy at the end of this movie.
Not even close.
They try.
It's a tough ask to follow Ben Mendelsohn as a villain, but still, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, don't focus on that. Focus on Robin Hood, right? Like, we've already had our villain there.
So, yeah, their motivation was like, okay, we had Ben Mendelsohn. Now wait till you get a load of the next sheriff of Nottingham, the guy who played the lead in 50 Shades of Grey.
Wait, that's the same guy?
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Well, I guess he knows how to hurt people.
He is unrecognizable in this movie to that
He's
guy.
wearing a shade of gray.
And he's got a beard. And we end on some really cheesy, in my opinion, I don't want to put words in y'all's mouth, but really cheesy Marion and Robin Hood lip-locking romance nonsense. And man, wow, look at the chemistry, That's like how we end the movie.
We started how we ended.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was just thinking about that scene and how it reminded me of The Princess Bride and how there's less screen time between the two characters in Princess Bride than this scene of them making out. And somehow I believe that one more than this. I don't...
Oh, I do too.
Why though? It's just crazy how bad this setup is.
It is, it's a total lack of chemistry and just someone who doesn't know, no offense to these guys, but doesn't know how to write romance properly. Like it's someone who's very
they know they need it there, but they assume that what you need is some sort of romantic drama, so you interject the love triangle.
Yeah.
And I'm so tired of love triangles.
Yeah. This guy couldn't figure out chemistry if Neil deGrasse Tyson smacked him in the head.
I'm wondering if that was like a relic of the past that they tried to latch onto with the Twilight and whatnot, where it was just like people like love triangles.
Well, it's very early 2000s. I feel like around 2006 there was this same kind of plot when it came to any sort of romance, where it was like this I don't know, kind of just loosely connected characters. And they're trying to interject some kind of drama into it by incorporating a third party. And it's just, no, that's not why we enjoy the romance. Like, that certainly is titillating sometimes for people, but that's not the reason it's good or the reason it builds character.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close our story out. We've given Robinhood 2018 a lot of our time, but with that said, we're going to take a quick break, and on the other end, we're going to get into our brief reviews with numbered scores, get into what critics thought, talk some box office, and close out with a little bit of franchise talk, so we'll see you then. Welcome back. Let's talk Robinhood 2018. And David, you got our scores there in a bowl. You want to pull them at random?
Alrighty then, sir.
All right.
Whatever that was. All right, first up, I grabbed 2. All right, first up, Reese with a 3.5.
Yeah, I don't like this movie. I give it points because it is functional. Like, this is a movie that can walk on its own 2 feet and make it to the end. Like, there is a plot here. It is told in story fashion.
You give a lot of points for just
no, I don't.
cohesive
I have
story.
more than that. Like, I think there's actual talent behind this movie. I think the action is done pretty well. I kind of sort of like the industrial design or production design at times. I wish they had pushed it further. I really wish there was more effort put into the costumes. As we said, it comes off very CW, when I think it could have... You can do a modern medieval take on a Robin Hood, and you don't have to look like this. Like, I know people don't like King Arthur Legend of the Sword, but that is...
I do.
Example, we do. But that is like exhibit A of how to do modern medieval times. Like, it works much better. But yeah, as I said, action, well done. I think the movie actually, we didn't talk about this, but the color palette of this movie, the use of color is pretty decent. It doesn't look muted like some movies like that are trying to go for this similar
It's
aesthetic
muted
do.
on the inside.
It is, but there's like some vibrant pop to the color here and there. Like, I love the look of the church when you actually go in, and there's these big you almost feel like you're going into like a Star Wars set.
Yeah.
Almost.
We've actually made several comparisons to Star Wars when we were first watching.
Yeah, so that's cool. I think Ben Mendelsohn is giving his all here. He's like really hamming it up. He seems to be the only person who actually knows the movie that he's in. Even because Jamie Foxx, when I watch him, he seems to be doing a more earnest performance, which kind of makes me cringe more, because like he's actually trying, versus Ben Mendelsohn, who's like, oh, I see what this is.
Yeah, he's Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, exactly. Taron Egerton, even though this is his least compelling performance, there's still a degree of charisma that he takes with him, and I think he bounces off the better, more veteran actors in this movie more than everyone else. We did just watch a scene, though, where he stands up and makes a speech to the people, and as he's saying, "Listen to me," there's an explosion that goes off behind him, and it looks like a fart. But so I don't know whether to give points or take points.
You
for
give
that.
points.
Give points. Everything else about this movie, though, is not good. It's just, and especially just the anchoring this on the Maid Marian love aspect of this is what really, I think, sinks this the most. That should not, if the strength of your performance is the one coming from Eve Hursley, and that's like kind of how that's what the Robin is revolving around, like his main compelling the reason of what he's doing is her. That is a critical flaw that this movie is suffering, because if that's what this movie should have identified its strengths better. You have Ben Mendelsohn, this again veteran actor. You need to make him like the sole like motivator for Robin Hood. Make that your, like, this needs to be a revenge story or something where it's like that is the main, like when that final confrontation happens, that needs to feel like the big pinnacle final moment, and it needs to be satisfying. And it is muted by just the fact that Robin Hood's main motivator does not seem to be taking from the rich and giving to the poor. It seems to be trying to get to Marion, who is not good. Yeah, bad movie. Not the worst movie we've ever covered, but just I'm looking for better when I watch my Robin Hood movies. So 3.5.
All right. Next up, Noah with a 4. Let me just go ahead and throw in some keywords here.
He had things to say? Did he actually?
Which one's the Chad?
That's what I was about to say. The sheriff
all
is
Chads.
the Chad of Nottingham.
The Chad of Nottingham.
And otherwise, yeah, this movie's kind of boring. Nothing more to say.
All right, cool. I'm surprised he saw it.
Yeah. And hey, he gave it a 4. So far the highest score yet.
Yep.
Next up is Irina with a 3.5 as well.
Oh,
Yeah, I think I've pretty much given all my criticisms, so I'm going to try and just say the nice things. I like the sets. The sets have been pretty cool. I know you mentioned the church, and I think that was one of the few times where I actually woke up and where I was looking at the environment. I think Jamie Foxx, for me, injected a little more energy into a somewhat dull cast of people. I just know that with these actors there could be more. And whether the script itself was just limiting or the direction was limiting, I don't know. But I within the first 5 minutes, I had already decided, yeah, I don't like this. I just feel like I know it's not going to get much better.
yeah.
It does. There's more energy in the middle, but I don't think I'm gonna watch this again.
It's definitely one of those movies when you see the first 5 minutes, there automatically becomes a threshold that it can't like get beyond.
Yeah, you're
get
like,
beyond.
I know this isn't gonna get much better.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, David. That's me with a 4.5.
All right.
You love that I do that every time?
A little higher. I do. Keep it up.
Keep it up. All right. Well, yeah, I'm definitely on the higher end here, and my brain went to the lower numbers, and I kind of started at 1 and worked my way up, and I was like, I was trying to figure out where this fell.
1? Oh, but what about 2?
Well,
No, but what about 3?
yeah, that's kind of how it happened, and the reason I got up to a 4.5 is that there were glimmers of excellence.
Mm-hmm.
The writing is the biggest issue, I think.
I didn't
overall.
see any Yetis in this movie.
I think he forgot. That was going to be a thing.
There were Yetis in Mummy Between the Red Emperor. David scored that movie a 7 out of 10. Moving on, David, continue.
Yeah, I had a plan for this, and then Reese took an arrow and shot it right through my idea.
I was quick about it, though.
You were. I appreciate that. Yeah, the writing was the biggest issue, followed very, very, very closely behind by the wardrobe, which normally the wardrobe wouldn't make that much of a difference, in my opinion, but they went so far out of their way to make the wardrobe not fit that every scene calls attention to it.
They're like, how do we really pull our audiences out of any sense of immersion?
Can we be honest, though? Like, every scene that happened, no matter how invested you were, is there not one moment where you thought, man, Ben Mendelsohn's wearing a suit? Like, it's just, there's just something.
Jamie Foxx's outfit was really distracting to me as well. He was wearing like this like skin tight muscle shirt, but it had like random moth holes in it.
I know.
Yeah.
I was like,
They
okay.
looked like the holes looked like they had been purposefully cut out.
Look, that's the whole point, is that every single character, you could watch this, and I if you're a person who is a fan of this, if you're not a fan, if you end up watching this movie, just like pause it on one of the opening scenes where you just have like a wide open view of like the townspeople and just really look at what they're wearing. You'll see so many things that make no sense. It doesn't work. And we talk about anachronistic. I mean, I'm okay with certain anachronistic things. There's so many movies that do it really well. I mean, even Django Unchained, there's a lot of anachronistic clothing in that. But you don't think about it because it blends in.
Another Jamie Foxx movie.
Exactly, yeah. But this movie, your brain just can't make the jump. It just doesn't work because they're trying too hard to both be a period piece but also modern, and it's just they don't know what they want. But anyway, so that's right up there with the writing. Music is something we haven't talked about much. I'm gonna say that
There's not much to talk about.
Unoffensive. Take the Avengers theme and then tone it down by 7 out of 10, and that's the score you got here. It passes. It's fine. Otherwise, I really do like the actors and actresses in this. It's just bad directing, honestly, bad writing. I think that this cast could do what we needed to do if they were well directed.
Yeah.
This movie's just not up to par. But I did have more fun with it than expected, I guess. I saw the reviews a little bit before this, and I was expecting something a little more abysmal. Definitely not a 5. 5 is like the baseline too. I guess I started with a 1. I'm like, is it as good as a 5? No. Is it a 1? No. And then kind of figured it out from there. But yeah, this movie is just, if I had to put it on, like I think I've said this before. If I'm on vacation, I'm at a hotel, it's on TV, and there's nothing else on, I'll watch it.
This is the movie that you're like borderline drunk. You've just finished a movie and you're just collapsed on your couch, and the next thing that cues up is this, and you're just like, oh, I can't reach the remote.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't expect to stay conscious for the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But again, I said this before. There's glimmers of good movie in this. Like there
agree.
could be a good movie in this, and I give them a little more points for that.
All right.
And last but not least, we have AJ rounding out the rear with a 3.
Nice.
All right. I'm going to steal some threads here of David's review, and let's go with this clothing motif. And Jamie Foxx did it himself. You take this nice coat of Robin Hood, and he just takes a knife to it and chops it up, and just tries to turn it into a padded jerkin. And Robin's like, I like that coat. He's like, well, now it's a jacket. That's what this movie is. I mean, it's just like, putting a modern spin or an anachronistic spin on a well-told tale. Sure, by all means. I mean, West Side Story, look at that. Much Ado About Nothing. I mean, heck, The Lion King, My Own Private Idaho. I mean, all those things are retellings of a story with your own unique spin, flavor, seasoning, Romeo plus Juliet. But they have consistency, and they have stitching. They have, things that are holding them together. And instead, it's just like you have these cool sets, but, you're in a place where the streets have no name. And he's just like, I want to make this Robin Hood movie, and well, here's the spirit of Robin Hood. I'm going to make this with or without you. It's just, I don't know. You're stuck in a moment you can't get out of in this movie, and it's just, you're feeling vertigo, honestly. There's no motivation for Robin. The key here, like, this is supposed to be a hero. This is Robin Hood. Come on, people. Like, you can do one thing, and Robin Hood, he steals from the rich to give to the poor. And yes, he nominally checks that box. But why? Why does he do that?
Yeah.
He's got, okay, Marion, she's the sweetest thing, I guess, but, she's so bland, like he's writing a song for someone, but, you don't know their name. And then you have to throw these action movies in just because, it's Sunday, Bloody Sunday, but I still haven't found what I'm looking for, Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Where is Robin Hood in this movie? You have great talent. You do.
I appreciate that reference, by the way.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. It's bad. And at the end of the day, like, all I want is you, Robin Hood.
Oh,
just
shut up.
You
do one more of those.
Like, all he goes by is pride, and that's not who Robin Hood is. Like, that's his central, I don't know. It's
his one.
In the end of the day, this is like a U2 song. Like, no one in the last decade would say that U2 is their favorite thing. The only reason you would, revisit this if it force installed itself on your iPhone. It's just bad.
Oh my gosh.
Well, cramming in the references there. I love it.
That was one of my favorite ones.
All right, AJ.
It's not Robin Hood. It's just a mishmash.
You want to crunch those numbers for us, AJ?
All right. So we have a group average of 3.7 for Robin Hood 2018. And let's see where that places it on our lineup. Okay, we have a tie at 3.7 for Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Lightning Thief.
Same difference.
Percy Jackson, Sea of Monsters. And let's see, I think we had A Good Day to Die Hard at 3.6, Columbiana 3.6, Mortal Kombat Annihilation 3.6. Above that, we have Girl in the Spider's Web at 3.8, Kick-Ass 2 3.9, and Aragon 3.9.
I would say Girl in the Spider's Web. Again, we come back to
3.9.
it. That one should maybe be a little higher.
Yeah, that was an early mistake of mine. So
I also
all
think
of
that
ours.
granted, based on the company this is in, one of the rare occasions, I'm like, yeah, bump it up 0.2. Like, I think
Yeah.
that just
Just
listening,
get it into the 4s.
4.0, I think this is where this lives.
Wait,
I don't know.
Robin
I
Hood?
enjoyed Percy Jackson more than this.
Well,
At least the first one.
Yeah, exactly. The first and the second, though, I think we rank.
Yeah,
the
this
same.
movie was bad. I think that's fair company. There's a couple of the.
Yeah, it is. It's fair company.
I do not disagree with our consensus for Robin Hood. I disagree with one or two of the
surrounding. Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to what critics thought. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a glorious 15% and an audience score of 40%. So we're closer to the audiences here. On Metacritic, the movie has a 32 from critics and a 3.8 from audiences. So we're smack dab in the middle between that.
We're good at that.
Yep. And I did not actually know the Metacritic score. I knew the Rotten Tomatoes. I did not know the Metacritic score. On IMDb, the movie has a 5.3, which, if you know IMDb, that's not very good. Once you get down below the 6s, that's kind of bad territory on IMDb. So overall, bad reviews for Robin Hood. It is, again, the one caveat, a lot of people like to say that this is terrible. This is not gutter scores. There are movies that are like fully in the gutter below this score. The scores from this indicate at least like a modicum of competency. And I don't clarify this often, but on Rotten Tomatoes, 15% sounds really bad. But what that actually means is that 15%...
85% of people did not think this was a good movie.
They didn't recommend it, is what it is. Yeah. And 15% of people actually went as far to recommend this movie, which is...
What do you think is more weird or more atrocious? That 15% recommended this movie or 2% didn't recommend Return of the King?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I'll come back to you.
Yeah, get back to me on that.
That's a tough one.
We always got to tie it back into Lord of the Rings.
But there's always like the thing that's lost in the Rotten Tomatoes score is just the shades of gray, where there's like people that might have given the movie a 5 out of 10, yet that is ultimately deemed a not recommend. So in the Rotten Tomatoes calculus, that goes in as a 0. So, which is not actually accurate. So 15%, while it looks bad on the face, it's actually not quite as bad. It's still very bad to have a 15%, but I just want to kind of give this movie slightly the benefit of the doubt that there is something going on more so than, say, I don't know, name a very bad movie. Neverending Story Part 2.
There you go. Our baseline.
Yeah.
That is our baseline.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I can't believe we've gone over 100 episodes, Irina, and somehow that is still
It's still the
number
worst.
worst movie.
Yeah. So the movie released in November 21st, which is that's the Thanksgiving holiday. Also in theaters at the time were the films Ralph Breaks the Internet, Creed 2, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, The Grinch, and Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh gosh, that's unfortunate for this movie.
The movie was budgeted at $100 million, big budget for
Wait, what did you say? 100?
$100 million.
Whew.
What do y'all think this movie did worldwide? And since it's AJ's miniseries, I will come to you last, give you the benefit here. You'll get the cherry on top at the end of this prediction. Irina.
I'm gonna go with 60.
60. David.
So this was going against a lot of good movies. Like, so this is, I mean, Ralph Breaks the Internet, I know did well. I know that, was it Creed 2 came out?
Mm-hmm.
A good movie as far as I'm aware. There's a couple other
Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah, Crimes of Grindelwald, that was up there. There's
The Grinch. The Illumination
yeah, there's
movie.
so many movies
Bohemian
up there.
Rhapsody.
And that's the, yeah, exactly. All
Yeah.
of those
What did
movies.
this one do,
Every
David?
single time you said that, I was like, that's another movie that I feel
Yeah.
like outdid this.
And yet, I was not going to theaters during this time. I don't remember any of these in theaters.
They were all big. I'll just say that. But
I'll
hey,
list
maybe
all
that
of
means
them.
this one was also big.
Sure. Everyone was just going to every single movie. I'm going to go 100 on the dot.
100. All right. So
it
we
barely
have
got it back.
60
It barely
on
did
the
it.
map, and we have 100 on the map. AJ.
I'll split the difference. Screw this movie. 80.
80. AJ, you're closest.
No!
No! AJ in the movie made 86
I was gonna
million. Close enough. That would have been okay if the movie cost $30 million. However, the movie did not cost $30 million. It in fact costed $100 million. And if you know what the math I typically go by to assess a movie's success, it must make around, give or take, 3 times its budget, because that also weirdly, like marketing and all that advertising is not factored into a movie's budget. So yeah, this movie cost a lot more than $100 million.
Where did all that money go?
Costuming.
I think this movie, I'll say this movie doesn't look like $100 million, but it does look like $50 to $60 million.
Yeah,
So like
I could see that.
some of the budget's on the screen, I'll say, but
Is it in the actors, you think?
maybe Jamie Foxx. Like Jamie Foxx is the one that I see costing a pretty penny to get on here.
I heard 20 million went to U2's next album.
Yeah. In fact, what you didn't know is Bono got a free download of this movie on his iPhone. That was a callback to your joke, AJ. I don't know if you appreciated that. All right. Movie didn't do well, but did it want a sequel?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did?
100% did.
Okay, so this movie blatantly
It screams
sets
it.
up.
It's no
like a
Mac and me,
sequel.
but
Like, I wouldn't even... This is one of those few movies where, yes, I did do research, but I would have been confident even if I had not done research going in that, yeah, this movie wanted a sequel. Because the last 15% of it is devoted to setting up what's coming next. It is like, oh, you have Jamie Dornan's character as the next... Oh, this is like the legitimate Sheriff of Nottingham, right? This is going to be the actual big... This is Thanos, actually. Let's go that far, right? This is our Thanos in the Robin Hood universe. Yeah, that didn't happen. But director Otto Bathurst very much wanted to return to direct a sequel. Taron Egerton very much more on the fence about it. He actually lucked out or he didn't even luck out, but he was interviewed, and basically they asked him if he wanted to return for a sequel, and he was like, or if he was signed on to a sequel, and he's like, I actually didn't sign on for a sequel, and I'm he didn't say he was glad about it, but he was like, I didn't want to be tied down to too many franchises. He's tied down to the Kingsman movies.
A very diplomatic answer.
Yeah, but of course he did give that like, oh, but I, love
wink,
the
nod, nod.
Love the universe. I love doing all this stuff. But let's go to an interview with the director, Otto Bathurst, and this is from Metro.us. So the title of this article: Will there be a Robin Hood 2? Here's what Taron Egerton and its director told us, and this is a article by Gregory Wakeman. So Otto Bathurst has opened up about a potential sequel to Robin Hood, admitting that discussions have already been had about what the follow-up would entail. Quote, "This film is an origin story. It is really the birth of Robin Hood. We see him become Robin Hood. He doesn't step into Robin Hood's boots until the last 15 or 20 minutes of the movie," Bathurst explained.
I'm sorry,
Quote,
what?
Yeah. Of course, there is more story to be told. Of course, we discussed there being more. Of course, everyone would love there to be more. Right, guys? That was me adding a little flavor to that.
I heard it.
Filmmaking is a business. If you can churn out more of the same and make a ton of money, no one is going to say no to that.
Oh.
And when a director says they're going to churn out more of the same, that doesn't really inspire confidence in what's going.
Did he look at the reviews?
I don't know. But do you, when you're trying to direct a piece of art, do you consider it, I guess I'll churn out another piece of
Yeah,
art?
churn out is rarely a good.
Also, that just
Churn something.
that
Stomachs.
makes it
Yeah.
that makes it sound just so They're being so self-assured that they know exactly what everybody wants. It's like, oh yeah, it's just so easy to make movies. I'll just make another one.
He
and
is the
they'll love it.
sheriff of Nottingham.
Anyway, it continues, quote, there is nobody at Lionsgate and anyone who's involved in the film who wouldn't want to make another one if it is a hit.
Oh my god.
It depends entirely on whether people have an appetite for this and like what we have done and the version of the story we are telling. Bathurst was even willing to go into detail about the story that's been discussed for a potential Robin Hood sequel. Quote, we are really interested in what happens to the sheriff and watching a politician become corrupted. He has just got power, so we would want to see what he would do with that power. Quote, this obviously resonates very much in the world today. There are politicians coming from nowhere grabbing power. Watching what he does, what goes on behind the scenes, seeing the jealousy torment him over the relationship between Robin and Marion. Plus, there's Robin and Marion's relationship itself. Can Robin step up to what Marion expects him to be?
He did not say that.
He did.
He did not say
Yes,
that.
he did.
Oh my gosh.
Also, what is like Robin Hood did all the noble work. What you do? Tuck is so fascinating too. He has a deep faith and love of God, but hates the company he works for. There's a lot more that we can bring to it. We certainly won't be watching Robin galloping around Sherwood Forest.
There you go.
Forest and stealing from the rich people and giving to the poor. Those films have been made. Our ideas are always left field. Are always left field of what has been served up before.
Well, shut up. Like, just shut up.
I'm gonna keep going because we're almost done.
Oh no, not you.
But is Bathurst, and this is from the writer of the article. But is Bathurst actually interested in returning to direct Robin Hood 2? ? Quote, for sure. Of course, it depends on where that journey goes. I think it is a really cool and important story. This one was a tough film to make because we were trying to squeeze a lot into the can. There's a love story in there, a buddy movie in there. There's all kinds of stuff.
As in the commode.
And thematic stuff about religion and corruption. It depends on what that balance in a sequel
what
might
movie
be.
was this?
I know. What is he talking about?
While Bathurst is clearly, and this is the author, and while Bathurst is clearly interested in returning to Sherwood Forest, Taron Egerton is yet to actually sign up for Robin Hood 2, as he didn't want to be attached to another franchise alongside Kingsman. And this is Egerton. I said I wouldn't do that. They gave me options, so they didn't make me sign up for sequels, which was a dream scenario for me. I kind of want to just end it. I kind of want to just end it
there. I mean, that is a dream scenario, I would say.
He continues, I'll finish it off just to be fair. Kingsman has been a great thing in my life, but it is an odd feeling being contractually obligated to do something. It is an odd feeling of being slightly owned. I felt like I didn't want to renew that. So as much as I wanted to do the movie, I didn't want to be in a position where I had to do a second one if I didn't want to. And the studio very kindly wanted to go with me anyway. Robin Hood is now in theaters.
All
so
right.
in the article.
All right.
It was.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, Robin Hood 2, y'all down?
No.
Look, honestly, give him a shot.
No.
Just like, come on.
No.
Come on.
No. No.
Come
if
on,
you're gonna do Robin
Bathurst.
Hood, gotta do something different. I'm not following
Give me
this
some of
story
that.
any further.
Give me some of that dirty bathwatered Bathurst.
What was that?
Yeah, churn something out for me.
Churn something out for me. Churn out another thing.
Give me some of that. What is the phrasing he said? Churning. That's what he said.
That, I will say, reading that interview made me not feel as bad about
Scoring it low.
scoring this low,
Makes
criticizing
me not
it.
want to watch anything this guy's ever been involved in it.
I want to lower my score
okay,
now.
so it weirdly makes sense now, but when I was watching this movie, it just felt like he was trying to push all these thematic things that it feels like a film student would know, like, oh yeah, this is what people talk about, so I'm going to put that in. But it comes from a very elitist perspective, where I felt like he didn't really have anything to say about the struggle of the poor other than like, oh yeah, there are poor people and their lives just suck. And
What's
I don't know
like?
why they suck, but you know. So
This guy is a moron that thinks his thoughts are deep, even though they're, juvenile. He thinks his own stuff doesn't stink. I don't know. I don't have much respect for this guy.
Honestly,
I lower my score to a 3.
Honestly, the way he was explaining the movie sounded like he was trying to set the narrative ahead of time, where one of those lines over there was pretty much him saying like, well, if people don't like it, that's kind of their fault, sort of a thing. Like
they don't understand my brilliance.
They don't understand it.
Anyway, there you have it.
Wow.
Wow.
Robinhood, it is it is a product. I'll say that.
Yep. Yep.
It functions.
Good job, Lionsgate.
He churned out one of those, and it was definitely, I saw it. So.
Into the can.
Yeah. All right, so that sums up our covering of Otto Bathurst's Robinhood 2018. Next week, we're going to a director that has a bit more of a filmography to his name, that being Ridley Scott. We're talking about the Russell Crowe-fronted Robin Hood, movie that came out 8 years prior to Robin Hood. That's right, we're going backwards this time in the franchise history. These are disconnected, so we're fine. We can do it. There's no connective tissue between these Robin Hoods. They're all technically remakes or reinterpretations of the original source material. So, yeah, next week, the 2010 Robin Hood, directed by Ridley Scott. I'm excited to see how this movie holds up. I saw it in theaters. Obviously, we'll get to that next week when we talk about if we've seen it or not, but I'm rambling. I'm excited, guys. Yeah. I think this was a good palate cleanse, and I think it is very much beneficial. This is very much working in this next movie's favor that we are coming off of this one. I expect slightly higher than normal scores for the Ridley Scott adaptation. And I could be wrong. Maybe y'all are able to completely wipe this from your minds and watch the next one very objectively.
Well, everyone knows Ridley Scott doesn't do movies as well as Bathurst does.
That's true. I'm a big Bathurst head, so it's going to be hard to...
Like bath salts.
Yep. Next week, Robin Hood 2010, Ridley Scott, Russell Crowe. See you then. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
You should have killed me. Everyone thinks I'm dead, so this must be hell.